Welcome to Who's Really the Boss podcast. I'm Rachel Dillon, and along with my husband, Marcus Dillon, we share the joys and challenges of leading a $3 million accounting firm together. From team structure to growth strategies, we share our leadership successes and failures so you can avoid the mistakes we have made and grow a valuable accounting firm. Welcome back to another episode of Who's Really the Boss podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
We are entering the new year, and so we need to give an update on the girls.
All right. So new year 2025 is when this will drop?
Yes.
Awesome.
So we're recording before even Thanksgiving, but I believe that this episode we're going to schedule to drop in January.
Well, that's good. So things seem to be clicking along. Avery in her senior year of high school just signed her national letter of intent to swim at TCU. We're excited about that. Big achievement for her and, for the family that has supported her all these years and all the chlorine, burning eyes, swim meets and natatoriums that we've been a part of. We get to do that for 4 more years, maybe. So, looking forward to that. And then you want to give the update about Kinley, our oldest?
Yeah. So Kinley is finishing up her fall semester at Baylor, and she is still doing apparel design and loving it. She is about to finish a project up. She said she only has to add the buttons to her shirt and then it can be graded. So she's super excited about that. And I think our whole family, all 4 of us, are really looking forward to our trip to New York coming up after Christmas. And so all of you listening will have to ask, 1, check on us, make sure we made it back safely. And then 2, definitely ask for an update on how that trip went, because we are all definitely looking forward to that.
Yep. Yeah, it'll be good. First family vacation in a while, in a few months. And whenever you've got kids in college, I know some of the listeners will kind of agree it's always special to kind of have the core family unit back together. And this is before any boyfriends or fiancés or anything like that have to start traveling too. So, but yeah, I'm sure that day will come.
All right. So to kick off this new year, we wanted to talk through some of the decisions that we're making in our accounting firm, Dillon Business Advisors. And so catchy title to throw out there, or the clickbait to throw out there, is decisions we're making in our $3 million firm. But really just wanted to talk through what are some decisions that we were making in Q4 and decisions that we'll continue to make and explore in 2025.
Yeah. So catchy title, but it's real, right? So we run a real firm. We have real team members that support real clients. This is not theory. This is true real world life. And so we have hit 3 million just at the firm level. And so that is made up of about 100 monthly clients that we're serving and a mix of about 10 to 15 family groups that we serve annually. And, the mix of MRR is about 75% now. And depending on how that goes, would look to grow that just a little bit more. But we also have some family groups that we've gotten into a model that works really, really well, even though they only pay us once a year. So that's the other side of the business. So that's kind of how we're structured, just for those of you that may not realize that. We've got 15 W-2 team members, 1 external contractor who sits in the Philippines. 12 of those, well, the equivalent of 12 FTEs is where we're at, because we do have a handful of part-time folks. And I know we'll get into some of that, some of the things that we're rolling out for those part-time folks beginning in January 1st, 2025 too. So, but yeah, that's kind of the background on where we're at. We still provide tax as part of like our advisory packages. And I love advisory, but I love it as kind of an add-on to sticky services. So if you're going to provide sticky services like payroll, bookkeeping, or tax, then we would add advisory, because, in tough times, advisory and consulting are maybe some of the first services to get cut back. And we always look at that and trying to meet our clients where they're where they're at, kind of the balance of value that we bring. So we always want to pair advisory with those sticky services. So that's a recap. I don't think you asked me for the recap, but I just wanted to provide that for listeners.
And did we say that our team members are remote? Half of us are part time, half of us are full time, half of us are in Texas, and probably getting close to more than half of us outside of Texas. So maybe
Yeah.
that's not an equal split anymore. Um, but it definitely looks different than we looked before 2020.
Yeah, for sure. And so we, in 2016, 2017, I don't know exactly what year it was, but definitely by 2017, we were at $2 million of revenue. We were heavy on clients. We had over 2,000 clients in the tax program, I think around 2,400. We were more of a high volume tax shop. 80% ARR tax was our revenue at that time. So heavy accounts receivable, heavy tax seasons, and then we started to shift since 2017. And what I would say is over these last 7 years, we have exited, so monetized and exited blocks of clients that equate to more than $1 million of revenue. And that growth from 2 million to 3 million while exiting clients was very hard. So that journey from 2 to 3, there was a lot of growing pains, a lot of structure that we needed to install and get right. Part of that was a leadership team. And, that's made up of you, me, Amy McCarty, our director of operations, and Leslie Reeves, our other client CFO. And there were other administrative investments that we had to make along the journey from 2 to 3. So now that we have that structure in place, and now that we are ready to kind of look ahead to 2025 and beyond, just don't want that growth to feel as painful for the next benchmarks, if you will.
I think you shared a quote. The goal is growth, not comfort. So, as you're talking about not being painful over there, we know that we're not called to be comfortable,
Yeah.
but definitely want to learn from what we've done in the past. So, as we start this episode, as we talk about decisions we are making, there were different decisions and a lot of decisions that all business owners have, and especially accountants and accounting firm owners at different stages in the business. So, where we are today and why that background is appropriate to share is just to talk through some of the decisions that we are making now for the firm where it is today. And then those decisions that we hope will propel us to our goals. And so, when we say we, you mentioned it, our leadership team, we're talking about, yes, the two of us, but also Amy and Leslie as part of the leadership team. These are decisions that we're making as a group of 4.
Correct. Yeah. So let's start. I know a lot of people latch on to technology. We can start there because as a $3 million firm, you acquire technology and subscriptions along the way up to that path of 3 million. You get sold, and that is totally the right word, on features of technologies. And so what we've been doing for about the last year or so is really evaluating technologies and making sure that we're choosing our core stack and then going deeper within our core tech stack versus like all the ancillary programs that we've acquired over the years, just because app fatigue is a very real thing. And we were at the events that Collective hosted in the Woodlands in November, and we polled the audience. Right now, technology costs in firms from 500,000 to 5 million, that range of firms, is running about 9 to 10% across the board. So that's an average that we feel, okay, that's a benchmark. We should probably try to stay under it if we can. Obviously, look for any opportunities to minimize that percentage when we can, but also want to test new technologies. But as soon as we're done with the test, turn those technologies off if they're not going to be implemented. So we are to the point with our advisory, it's not as deep as some of the fractional CFO or virtual CFO advisory that's out there. So as far as the tools that are needed to deliver those advisory and those conversations which are around relationship, we don't feel that we need to turn on subscriptions to like Giraffe or LifeFlow or anything like that. for every client. And so what we are making a shift to in 2025 is we like QBO, we like Keeper, which we layer onto QBO, and that's kind of our workflow for accounting and monthly accounting. We're actually going to use parts of Keeper more. So using the reporting, functionality of it, choosing what features to turn on in balance with our practice management software Canopy, and then just making it simple for clients to understand, especially if you're reaching out to them through multiple platforms, because we do request documents, we send out things to be signed via Canopy, and we have to make that decision. Are we going to do similar for accounting clients in Keeper? And right now the answer is no. Right now we're going to keep it to one communication portal, secure messaging, signature place, and that's Canopy. But what we have decided on is to use Keeper from the reporting standpoint. So we think that it provides really good basic financials and adds color to those financials, which is what 95% of our clients need. And so we're not going to go any deeper with Reach reporting or Fathom or Giraffe or any of those type of softwares. We're going to stay with Keeper and use it more. And for the clients that need a 13-week cash flow or anything like that, we will turn on special tools, maybe some of those that we just listed, maybe just good old Excel. But the rest of the team, they'll learn Keeper really well, and we'll deliver financials coming out of Keeper.
Yeah, I think technology is something that people love to look at and evaluate, and not so much that everyone just loves technology. But you definitely do get to hear a lot of cool things and see a lot of cool things when you're doing some demos. The salespeople, they definitely promise the world that it will solve all of your problems. And Amy shared this at our recent Together Again event in the Woodlands. And she said people love technology and implementing a new technology as a solution because there's a definite, concrete beginning and end. Like, we started this implementation and we finished it. That's kind of true. There's a little bit of nuance there. But when we think about processes, which I'll go into, because I think that's where most of us need to look first in our steps to evaluate our technology or new technology solutions. Um, that's more of an evolution over time. It's gradual, it's testing and then monitoring and then tweaking. And then that cycle just continues and continues. And you have the human element in there. So you have to adjust for that as well. And so that one's a little bit harder to define. And it feels a little bit longer and messier than just saying, here's some money. They said it's going to solve all my problems. I don't want to look at the process. They said this will fix it. I just want this. And so, but along those lines of processes, that's really where we had to start on evaluating if the softwares, if the apps that we were using are actually doing what we need them to do, and then figuring out which ones are best so that we don't have so many softwares and apps that we use for one special feature, even though
Mhm.
they can do, a lot of them are very robust and can do multiple things. We really had to look at the process and figure out exactly what we needed to solve for. And then we could choose the software, the app, the technology, whatever
Yeah.
it might be to put in that place.
Yeah, and I think we asked the audience at the collective event, about the number of apps they use, and I think the average was 30 different apps, so 30 different logins to really serve clients, throughout, whether it's the month, the quarter, the year. Um, Part of that just comes back to your client base and where you're at revenue wise should really drive the processes and the technology you use, not the opposite way around. So, you shouldn't be buying let's say, Giraffe in hopes that then you will get CFO clients. Like, that's just not the way that this should usually work. You should have the client first and then go out and solve for the pain point and the need. And that's given software or process. So I think a lot of people do the opposite whenever you hang out with technology salespeople. You buy technology, and so we've been guilty of it in the past. But I think it's taking a hard stance of, are you willing to spend 10% on technology of your budget? Are you willing to spend 15? Because if you don't pay attention to it, it will just continue to grow. Kind of like the Netflix subscription, the Hulu subscription, everything that we have turned on personally. The business subscriptions are no different. And so the other piece of technology that we'll continue to embrace are the Microsoft products. So anytime we can stay within the Microsoft stack, we will. That's where we've made decisions on where things are stored using SharePoint OneDrive versus housing things in a practice management software. We have been burned by practice management softwares in the past, as far as like they're just not great places to store things long term, and it makes it harder to move practice management softwares if you want to move practice management softwares. So all that to say, we will lean into Microsoft whenever possible. And the last thing that I would say about technology is, what doesn't make sense, what's not connected. Those are some of the questions that we continue to ask ourselves. And we've even toyed with the idea of testing new tax software, which is really foundational in most firms that still continue to do tax. And the only option as far as a browser-based solution is one of Intuit's products, which is the one that we're evaluating, that would sync up directly with QBO, which is our primary GL program. And maybe that eliminates the bridge, program that we have in Tally 4, and we can speak directly from GL to tax product once it is in an Intuit stack, versus we use UltraTax, which is in a virtual remote desktop environment, which, supports our remote team, but it's still clunky. It's still not the best, just because there aren't any other browser-based tax solutions at this point.
All right. And then two other decisions that we kind of made regarding technology for 2025. We recently switched our phones. So our voice over IP phones were in a separate app called 8x8. It didn't do anything else but our phones and our fax line for the IRS. That was the purpose of that. And we recently switched over to Zoom phones because we use Zoom for webinars with Collective, because some of our Collective team members also use Zoom video meetings. Then we also decided, hey, Zoom has a phone feature with texting, with calls, where we can have a line that is dedicated and can get shared information for codes and different things. So we definitely looked at how could we take this one technology, our phone lines that are in a separate app that only does one thing, and use something else that we're already signed up for, subscribed
Yeah.
to, and use more of its features there.
Yeah. So, and we just mentioned leaning into Microsoft whenever possible. So some people may be asking, why don't you do Teams phones? We use Teams internally for everything. We're not Slack, we are Teams, and would have really loved to use Teams phones. It's just not quite there as far as the call quality and just some of the feature rich environment that Zoom does have. So as mentioned, we're moving over from 8x8. We're kind of canceling GoToWebinar and merging a couple different softwares into this Zoom run. Zoom also is very easy to use from the client perspective and even team member perspective. So I would consider it kind of best of breed, which is a term, to also a lot of people use, but I think Zoom really is there. And, the other thing is Zoom is a newer modern tool, which it's easy to turn on and off licenses and subscriptions within Zoom, versus like 8x8 and other phone systems make that really difficult to scale up or down your users. And they have contracts in place. Zoom does not. So I think those are just some of the features why we ultimately landed on something like Zoom. And I know a lot of people already use Zoom in this fashion. So maybe it's just us coming into the 21st century.
Yeah. And then the last area, we recently rolled out the probably Q3 of 2024, a new onboarding process. So, a how to, a workflow that's designated by role. But we rolled out a new onboarding for onboarding new clients process that involves the team of three working together to onboard that client versus just one specific person or a specific onboarding team that wouldn't serve the client after the fact. And so, definitely looking now that that process is good, and we measure that good of that process by looking at the quality of the onboard and the time that it takes to onboard a new client. And so, when we now, I think, are averaging 2 to 3 weeks for a full onboard, that's bookkeeping and tax, getting some advisory questions answered. They are ready to go in service, and first set of financials have been issued. We're able to do all of that within 2 to 3 weeks and not setting aside other client work or delaying other client work. So, just saying that we have tested that process and now we can start looking at ways to enhance that with automations or adding in maybe features of softwares that we already have.
Yep. Yeah. So I think you teed us up very nicely with process winning over technology, but then you also teed up the conversation on team of three really well as kind of where we're segueing to. Given the team structure in that team of three, where we've got a CSM, a client controller, and a client CFO that serve every team member over the last 3 years, I would say we've seen huge efficiency and effectiveness strides in client service and satisfaction as far as like turnaround time. And you mentioned even onboarding turnaround times. And so just the communication, the team working hand in hand, and then incentivizing how they work throughout onboardings and client service to deliver financials timely, huge strides. And we saw in August, coming out of the summer, about 45% available capacity within DBA. So we had a lot of excess capacity given our current client load. So we weren't planning on hiring or modifying too much because of that existing capacity. We knew we needed to either go out and fill the funnel organically or inorganically. A few things that have happened since August. So actually in November, we've had 2 longtime team members that are leaving DBA, and all for good reason. So while it's sad to see anybody go, you have to celebrate their next chapter. And so both of them are actually going to do their own thing, which we support. I think it's pretty evident that the opportunities and leadership opportunities within DBA could not be solved for these two, and they had to look outside of DBA to go for their next chapter. And it's just a realization that we're seeing. So those are the reasons that I tell myself that we now have to make sure that we're giving others opportunities within DBA, or we can't be sad whenever they do look outside of DBA. So we are not planning to go out and hire replacement CSM, replacement controller in the traditional sense, because we did have that excess capacity. And some people may be saying 45% capacity, that is a lot. I would say we want to be at 25% available capacity. So we didn't have much additional capacity that we had to make up, but now where we're at, if we did have new clients wanting to come on, that would really be strategic on how to assign those within teams versus how we were thinking about that in August or September. So good problem to have, kind of getting a little bit more lean on the team side, still taking care of a very small team when at all possible, and caring for humans is always a fun thing. But the availability and looking to hire isn't really on the roadmap right now, but it is something that we are focused on in 2025. So you want to share a little bit about that roadmap and who we are looking for in 2025 to add to DBA?
Yeah, well, let's go back before we go forward. So we have a team member, a client service manager who provides about 12 hours of work each week
Yep.
that is going to start her own bookkeeping business. So kind of a side business. Again, I think she's trying to keep her schedule about the same, but she would just not have the additional responsibilities, and she would have then her own business. So would just give her some leadership opportunities and even more flexibility than what she already has within our firm. And then our other position is a full-time client controller. And so what we were able to do, and she also will be starting her own accounting firm. And so we are excited for both of them to be business owners, and they have been guiding small business owners, one for the last 8 years within DBA, one for the last 7 years within DBA. So they definitely have a handle on what to do, what not to do, and now can go put some of the advice and some of the skills that they've been using to practice in their own businesses. So we are celebrating that. We are excited for them, but it doesn't make it any easier on our side to have two team members exit. So, what we had to start looking at for a 12-hour week client service manager, we knew we had, with all of that available capacity, we knew that we could find team members to care for those clients within our team that we already had. Replacing a full time client controller was a little bit different, and definitely a decision that we had to make and evaluate and really look at who were the clients, what was the kind of billable production time for that team member, what was the admin time and responsibilities, did those need to be also replaced, or just the billable client work need to be replaced? So those were a lot of the decisions that we looked at, and then we're able to arrive at, we actually had capacity to fill the billable portion, and the administrative didn't need to be replaced at this time.
Yeah. So the other thing that we identified was, even in those August capacity calculations, that is with part timers essentially logging off when they don't have work to do. So we started having conversations at the end of the summer and then leading up to January 1st of 2025. Really a commitment with our part time folks to say, like, how much do you want to work? And if that's 24 hours, if that's 30 hours a week, we are committed to paying you for those hours, regardless if you have work, because we need to know how much existing capacity there is within DBA. And so we're firming that up a little bit, so that we could identify capacity even within our existing team members who, they may have logged off after 18 hours because they just didn't have work and they didn't want to just charge a lot of admin time. So that's a little bit of a change and a shift starting January 1st, but that also helped us navigate to team members exiting, to where one of our controllers who does work part-time, and she was working about 18 to 20 hours average per week. She saw that exit of another team member as an opportunity, and she actually said, "Hey, I'm willing to add time." And, through a couple different conversations, she even said, "I'm willing to work full time. Like, I think this would be good for myself and my family." And full time at DBA is 36 hours, because we do have flex Fridays. So she's actually stepping up to full time, and actually will have all of that capacity replaced, just with that. And she may have some ability to grow, even and take on new clients after getting through kind of the transition phase. So we'll watch that closely. She will be leading an additional CSM through that process. And so anytime you have your leadership expand through managing others, and then obviously getting to know new clients, we want to make sure that that's done with care over time. So we would expect to watch that closely, and maybe even make a decision on her in Q2 if we are adding any additional clients to her load. But yeah, the immediate kind of hire, I guess, if you will, that we will make is an additional TOA team member. So we've really liked having April as our CSM assistant. We just had a conversation about that on the podcast. So we will go and employ an additional TOA resource. So each pod has a CSM assistant to kind of support the CSMs. And then CSMs can also delegate to the CSM assistant when at all possible, just to make sure that they are having the best use of their time, which is team communication, client communication. So that's something we're immediately looking to add.
And typically, what we saw with our first CSM assistant through TOA April, what we saw when we added April, we were able to gain not a lot, we were able to gain some capacity for our client service managers that allowed them to take on an additional client or two or three without having to add additional hours to their week. So that is what we are hoping will happen as well. Assuming that that does go well, then we would also be looking to hire later in 2025, looking to hire another client controller. And that would help with capacity there and allowing team members to continue to take on new clients that come in the door. So those are kind of the positions that we will be looking to add in 2025. Just based on our capacity calculations, where our clients are right now, how we're serving them, and the current team makeup that we have.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to point out there is, as far as an organic growth strategy, as far as new clients added, we're obviously watching churn very closely at DBA. Churn was a little bit higher than we would have hoped for in 2024, but we did have some price increases that we knew would shake things up. And then we were also looking to really shake up our AIM model, which is kind of a 1040 plus a couple of tax projections and meetings throughout the year. So that was just priced too low and it wasn't profitable. So we heavily increased price to kind of move that up to profitability. And in the midst of that, we churned out a few clients, but we were prepared for it. So in 2025, we are rolling out goals of 15 new organic clients. And so that'll be a mix of opportunities that are uncovered in our existing client list, maybe moving some. There's not a whole lot there because we've done a really good job at refining and already cross-selling or upselling our existing client list. So it is very much like, how do we make sure that we are spending good quality time with clients so that we can be a great referral source for them? And then also with our referral partners, making sure that they know about our goals and that they can play a part in that. And, 15 new organic clients, that doesn't move the needle much on onboardings. We're still doing anywhere from 1 to 2 per month. And that would be spread between team that is available to do that. So we don't want to overwhelm team of 3 with onboardings now that they are such a big part of it. So yeah, that's part of the goal for 2025, and 15 clients at an average price point of, are we saying 2,000 or 2,500 per month?
Yeah, I would say definitely higher than 2000. 2000 is our quarterly advisory package. So all of the services as far as bookkeeping and tax projections are the same no matter what, but how often they meet with one of our client CFOs is what the pricing is based on. So quarterly CFO FaceTime is 2000, but typically the businesses that we onboard, we can also do their payroll or potentially their accounts payable through bill pay. Sometimes they have a sales tax requirement. So typically there's something. I think most common would be that they have also a real estate entity that increases that monthly price, even if we're not doing payroll or they don't have a sales tax requirement. A lot of times our small businesses have also a real estate entity that we keep up the accounting for an add-on price to that main package.
Yeah. So those are the goals. We'll have to firm up, in order to hit those goals, we'll have to firm up some of our marketing strategy and ad strategy. So, obviously working on that side to make sure that we're assigning an appropriate budget for good growth. And so I know that marketing and advertising is kind of your world. So anything else to add on that side as far as changes at DBA in the near future?
No, I think we will just be looking at who are we targeting, looking at some of our industries because we do serve doctors, dentists, and vets. That is who we market to. We do have teams of 3 set up with expertise in those industries. So looking at which of those should we continue to lean into more if there are ones that we should lean into more than the other out of those 3. And then again, that's going to be continue to invest in relationships. So, relationships with current clients, relationships with um, current related professional service providers that may have clients or a network of people who are needing the types of services that we provide.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think a statistic that we've shared here recently and definitely at the collective events in the Woodlands in November was 60% of the owner's time should be in the form of business development. And I have definitely gotten away from that. I think, you as part of the ownership team have also like, I don't, it's not 60% even combined probably between the two of us. And so, I'm kind of recommitting to the team and our leadership team that I will refocus some of my time to that business development side for DBA, and as a result, hopefully we easily get those 15 target clients in 2025.
Yeah. So, also considering advancement opportunities. So, making decisions on what types of positions can we create or elevate people to within the team to be able to develop some leadership skills and have leadership responsibilities. And so in the mid-year of 2024, we rolled out subject matter experts. And what that is the person who raises their hand and says, I'd like to be the subject matter expert for a specific topic. They are responsible for not deleting the emails that come through about updates or important education events or important just ideas or thoughts that we need to know about. And so, one, they will read those emails and share with the team. Two, they will provide support to team members. So they will be like the point person. So we came up with 2 roles initially. We have a payroll SME and we have a tax SME. And now we are going to be adding a QBO SME. And so, again, what that person is responsible for is sharing with the team any updates, any process efficiencies, and then being available to the team to answer questions related specifically to that area or that technology, whatever it might be. And so there is compensation tied to that so that we are accounting for the additional time because we do want that person, not just something that they have to come in and they're already an expert in that area, but allowing them to have time to even become the expert of that area. So it's more a willingness of like, yes, I have an interest in this, or I am more advanced maybe than not. And so then that just allows them to continue to grow in that area, to have some leadership skills without necessarily having to change a role. They don't have to change to a different role within the firm. They don't have to look outside of the firm to begin to work on their leadership development. And so that I think has been a win for all of the team members and definitely the firm as a whole, definitely the clients, because service is even better when we have those people in place.
Yeah. So those advancement opportunities, even whenever you're thinking about as like your firm, it could be as simple as like, an advancement opportunity like an SME to where you're elevating somebody to be the go-to expert on your team. And maybe that's enough, but I would still encourage you to have really good candid conversations with your team about where they see themselves in the next 3 to 5 years, how you can help them achieve those goals, whether that's within your business or outside of your business. I think that's coming from a place of maturity and knowing that if you're not able to if you're not able to provide those opportunities that people just do naturally look outside of the business. So yeah, advancement opportunities make all the sense in the world. And maybe it's just something as low hanging fruit as SMEs.
Oh. Any other big decisions that we are making or thinking about for 2025?
Yeah, so the last one, and this has kind of been a few years in the making, is DBA will likely do an acquisition of another firm in 2025, and so that may be early 2025, that may be later in 2025, but we just feel that given the capacity that we've been able to build up, the efficiency and the culture, that we can now go back into the market as an acquirer. We've done a few of those acquisitions during our 13 years, three to be exact, well, four to be exact. And the last one we did was in 2016. We've learned a lot since 2016 on how to navigate that and how to do it very efficiently and effectively. And as mentioned earlier, the growth from 2 million to 3 was very hard. And it took a lot of investment in structure and team. And we just don't want the growth from 3 to 4 or 4 to 5 to be as hard. And so just a little bit different of how we're going to do that in the near future. And so, yeah, I think that's where we're at as an industry. I think you're either in acquisition mode or you're likely going to be acquired. So we definitely want to take the position of acquisition mode, to maintain culture, to maintain everything we built at DBA and not dissolve into another brand or another culture.
Yeah. And I think that, back a few years ago, 7, 8 years ago, when we were exploring these opportunities, we had great people in place. We had a great culture. We had okay processes at that time. I feel like now we have great people, great culture, and great processes. We have spent a lot of time refining one and then looking for the next, not refining one and saying we're good, we changed this or we made this better, so now we can sit back, we don't have to do anything after that, but really looking at that next kind of weakest point or that next challenge point in our firm and really continuing to improve on every single one. We also learned some things to look for when looking at acquiring a firm. So when evaluating firms and evaluating teams and clients and that sort of thing. So I am hopeful that this next one will be awesome. And of course, there's no hurry. And so it's really looking for the right opportunity there and taking our time and really doing the due diligence to make sure that what we are potentially acquiring is good for all parties involved.
Yeah. So we've narrowed that focus. I mean, obviously, it's because we're so focused on not diluting culture, not diminishing the value that we've already built within DBA. Any acquisition target would be sub 1 million as far as a firm revenue size, teams of probably 5 or less, and heavy focus on businesses. And I think that's where we've done well in the past. And we can go in and filter through and look for opportunities, look for ways to apply the DBA model in team of 3, and then filter through those businesses as time allows. So that's the exciting part. Being able to connect directly with the peers that are a little bit older than us. I think they welcome us into those conversations. So there's a lot of opportunity for conversations like that, even where we currently live, on this west side of Houston. We are also looking at other target cities within Texas because Texas has been really good to DBA, and we don't want to outstretch ourselves too much in the beginning as we go turn on this side of the business, which is a lot of fun. So like a lot of my time will also be focused on that. And that gives me energy. We have a banker that believes in us. We have some people that are our cheerleaders that believe in us. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And if we do it for the right reasons, and honestly, with open hands, as far as just stewards of this business and seeing how we can impact others, is the approach that we want to take with DBA. And so if we do that, we're going to be all the better for it.
So we talked about a lot of decisions that we are making or have made in preparation for this year, 2025. And I think that making decisions alone is hard. So, as we're talking through all of these things, we mentioned at the very beginning, we have 4 people within our leadership team helping to evaluate and make these decisions. But we also have a community and a network outside of Dillon Business Advisors that we are leaning on for their experience and their advice, their cautions, I will say. That's probably what we listen to most now that we're older. Not some The encouragement is great, but the cautions are kind of what we lean on to save us. And so I think that that's really important too, that even though Dillon Business Advisors, is ours, and the decisions to be made, are there for the 4 of us, but really leaning into the community and the network of people, the network of peers that we've built over the years has really been instrumental for us and our continued success.
Yeah. And so I met with my collective forum today and spent 2 hours in that room of 10 other firm leaders and, even presented this idea of what acquisition looks like, the reasons to do it, the reasons not to do it, sought feedback, also seeking accountability from them on this. So if you do not have that space, I mean, everybody in my forum, I've known for a few years and they know me really, really well. And yeah, so I mean, we would love to have those conversations on what a collective forum could look like for you. And if you don't have that, like that's something to definitely check out at collective.cpa.
Yeah, absolutely. You can even go to our contact us page and schedule a meeting with me. And I'd love to talk to you, whether you're looking for a community or you heard something that we've said on this episode or a previous. Love to talk more about that with you. So feel free to visit collective.cpa and schedule a meeting.
All right. Thanks so much for the conversation. It'll be fun to watch 2025 unfold and excited for all of the good things to come.
All right. See you on the next. Thanks for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed the conversation and want to learn more, be sure to visit collective.cpa. You can schedule a meeting directly with me, Rachel, by clicking on the Contact Us page. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share so you don't miss any future episodes. We look forward to connecting with you soon.